4. 1. The Pier. After I broke up with my girlfriend, I started taking long walks to fill in the time. You know how it is. You're in your late 20s and your friends are all married and starting families, and all the people you work with are middle-aged. A lot of the places I used to hang out seem to have closed down. So I just started walking. It's free, it's good for you, and like I said, it fills in the time. I always seem to end up at the lake. There is a pier there with a lighthouse extending out into the dark waters, and I'd always have to take a turn on it. Sometimes I'd just sit there at the very end, the very edge, and dangle my feet over the dark water as I tried to find a way out of my current situation. This one particular night, I reached the pier after midnight, when there was no one around. I walked out to the end, and when I got there, I couldn't help thinking, if only for an instant, that drowning was one answer to my loneliness. I heard a splash, then a plop, and then this thing came up out of the lake. It was a humanoid, sopping wet, with bloated, chalky white features and limbs, and covered all over with seaweed. It opened its mouth with this kind of growl and splattered the ground with a shower of water and vomit. The stench was terrible. It staggered towards me, still groaning, and I reacted instinctively. I thrust out my hands and pushed it away with all my force, pushed it so hard it stumbled over the edge, striking the water with another loud splash. I ran forward to look over the side, and the thing was back, clawing at the side of the pier, trying to pull itself out of the water. I think its hands, its fingers were webbed. I stomped on them, stomped and stomped and stomped while the thing bellowed, stomped till it finally let go and slid back into the black. I think it was gone for good. I think. I ran from that place, ran all the way home, and when a few days later I got a job offer in Western Canada, I took it. There's no water on the prairies, eh? 2. The cemetery. When I woke up, I had no idea where I was. All I knew was that I was lying in wet grass and felt like crap. Slowly, gingerly, I raised my aching head and, squinting my eyes, took a look around. I was in the cemetery. The boneyard. I had no idea how I got there. That must have been some party. Still, there was nothing for it now but to go home. I got up and stumbled out onto the road out in front and began moving in the direction of home. My phone was gone, so I had no idea what time it was. It was then I saw a guy stumbling towards me. He looked vaguely familiar, but I had to squint hard. There was something wrong with my bloody eyes. I had to squint hard before I recognized him as a dude I knew well. And he sure looked like he had a skin on. He was dead drunk. I called out to him, "Hey! Hey!" It came out funny. What happened next was funny too. The dude took one look at me, screamed, and then fell back on his ass. It was too funny. I started to laugh, but the sound came out like I was gargling. I noticed the dude had pissed his pants, which cracked me up even more. And the whole time the guy kept yelling, You! 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 What's the matter with you? I finally managed to slur out. You're dead! He shrieked. We buried you 3 days ago! And with that, he jumped up and took to his heels. Oh. Crap. I turned around and went back. What else could I do? 3. The judge. And you will be put to death by lethal injection. Of course, the man under sentence had a tantrum and began screaming, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. Oh, why don't you believe me? It was this thing, this monster, this werewolf. He actually charged the bench, but he didn't get far. He was still screaming as they dragged him out, acting as insane as the defense tried to paint him. No doubt there would be an appeal. His girlfriend killed by a werewolf. What a joke. My clerk followed me into chambers to ask if there was anything else I needed, but I dismissed him rather curtly. I wanted to be alone. I needed to be alone. And once I was alone, I stripped off my judicial robes. I had been naked underneath. I went to the window overlooking the now empty parking lot and opened it, pulling back the curtains to allow the light from the newly risen full moon to stream into the room, and I waited. I waited. Tonight some poor person would die, and some poor innocent fool would be condemned for the crime, possibly by me. Oh well, most human beings were expendable. Suddenly, the transformation started. My body was racked by the most exquisite pain as my form twisted, as a tail sprouted from my buttocks, as my nose elongated into a snout, my ears became pointed, my teeth became fangs, and my eyes burned redly. As a werewolf, I dived through the open window, not knowing about the dumpster that had been placed there earlier in the day. The fall knocked me out, and an hour later, I was compacted. My disappearance has never been solved. 4. The movie. Jay loved old horror films, especially the ones from the 1950s, which he regarded as the golden age of B-movies. And so he would sit up until the wee small hours of the morning, sitting at his dining room table and watching vintage movies on his laptop. Thus, Jay was delighted when his YouTube recommends turned up a movie he'd never heard of. The Watching Dead. Not The Walking Dead, The Watching Dead. Jay clicked on the thumbnail, which showed a darkened movie theater. The film had been made by an unknown company and featured actors equally unknown. The director was a stranger too. As well, it was awfully short for a feature film. It wasn't even an hour. Oh well, no great investment of time. The opening scene showed the interior of a darkened movie theater, which made Jay think of such B-movie classics as The Blob or The Tingler. The Tingler. A fat guy with glasses and wearing a shirt and tie. Hey, it was the 1950s. Took a seat and began scarfing down popcorn. No doubt buttered popcorn. But he didn't scarf long, as a hand holding a large hunting knife, came out of the darkness behind him and slit his throat, splattering the screen with black blood. Hey, it was a black and white film. Splattering the screen with blood. At the same moment, something grabbed Jay's head from behind and pulled it back as a hand holding a large hunting knife came out of the darkness and cut his throat. Did you know that when someone cuts your windpipe, it makes a whistling noise? That was the last thing Jay ever heard. But he didn't hear it for long. 5. The Pier, Part 2. I was desperate for a job, which is why I agreed to work as a deckhand on a Great Lakes freighter. Early in the evening, we sailed out of Toronto Harbor, bound for the exotic port of Buffalo. Yeah. I was standing at the rail, gazing out at the lights on shore, and wishing I was on shore too, when a gust of wind blew my cap off. It was a brand new designer Vegas Golden Knights baseball cap, and I'd paid a lot of money for it. I instinctively reached out for it and fell overboard into the lake. I seemed to go down forever, and God, that water was cold. When I finally managed to make my way back to the surface, the ship was hundreds of yards away and would have shuffled off all the way to Buffalo before they discovered I was missing. The shore didn't seem that far away. A mile, maybe. In any event, I had no choice but to swim for it. I was in the water for hours and nearly drowned a dozen times, but I finally made it to this little pier and managed to climb up. There was this dude there who looked totally shocked the instant he saw me. I'd already crapped my pants and then I threw up all over the place. But I no sooner recovered when you know what the dude did? He pushed me. He pushed me back into the water. And when I tried to crawl back up, he started stomping on my fingers. Stomping on them. I could actually hear them breaking. I screamed for him to stop, but he wouldn't stop. He was trying to kill me. And he did. I slid back under the black water, too exhausted to fight. And as I drowned, my last thought was, I wonder where my cap ended up. If this is your first visit to my channel, please consider subscribing. My name is Warren, and I write and tell original ghost stories and original horror stories featuring such cryptids as the Night Floaters, Werewolves, and the Black-Eyed Children. So again, please consider subscribing. Please help me to reach my goal of 2,500 subs. Till midnight. Cheers. Pictures used in today's video, courtesy of Pix Here, that's PX Here, while the music was the awesome and awe-inspiring Aftermath by that awesome and awe-inspiring patron of the internet, Kevin MacLeod.